I'm attempting to launch a product on Amazon for under £1,000 and documenting the whole process for you. In today's installment, I'm deciding on a brand name and also creating a logo for free in front of your eyes. So let's get into it. Welcome back to another installment of Project1K, a rather ambitious attempt, shall I say, at launching a new product on Amazon. It's 2020. I want to see what's possible. I've launched a product for under £1,000 before. That was a couple of years ago though, so I want to see if it is still possible. Putting the constraint of budget upon this project definitely has presented its challenges. If you do want to see the previous episodes where I go through those challenges and start the process, then check out the playlist for Project1K below. And listen, if you're someone who wants to launch profitable products, who wants to build brands that last, ultimately you want to build a business that's going to free you up from that grip that money can so easily place over your time and actually live the life that you dream of, and it's going to make an impact on the world, be sure to subscribe and hopefully you will then be well on your way. We're going to jump into today's session. We're recording these sessions live inside of our Brand Builder University community so that we can get feedback. And in today's session, I got their ideas, I got their thoughts on brand names, logos, etc. And so let's dive into it. All right, well, welcome back to another installment of Project1K. I hope you've been finding these videos helpful. Previously on Project1K, the number one step of building a brand is you've got to start somewhere, right? You've got to understand your budget. You've got to understand what kind of criteria that you're looking for when you're going to start this business. So we talked about that and about how I'm going to be looking at a 1K budget. That means my options are going to be limited and I have to look for products that are a certain criteria, which we talked about in week 2, where we talked all about selecting products, and the criteria that we were looking for was something that's small and light, something that has a relatively low minimum order quantity, something that is a relatively low unit cost, and that's going to give us those opportunities to be able to order a bunch of units early up. But also because it's a short lead time and because it's small and light, it's going to reduce the amount of units we're going to need to order each time we reorder, right? Because there's a short lead time, which, we need to give the manufacturer less notice to get our order ready on time. And because it's small and light, the hope is that we can ship it by air. We looked at something called the product potency formula, which is like a 6-step process of validating product ideas. We found that the cross-stitch kit actually has, a good amount of demand, the right kind of amount of demand. It's not about being necessarily high demand, because there's no point you having high demand but not being able to fulfill those sales. We looked at the levels of competition. We looked at the opportunities to differentiate. We looked at some numbers and realized that it has the potential to be profitable. We know that it's scalable because we know there are other products that the same person that likes this product would like in a similar niche. And we also know that there's no restrictions in terms of hazmat or patents or trademarks or anything like that. So that was week 2. We settled on that one. And then week 3, we looked at sourcing this product, or step 3. This was over a couple of parts, a couple of weeks. We kind of went through ideas to differentiate the product, and then we narrowed suppliers down. And right now we're in the process of ordering samples from suppliers. I've got 2 suppliers I'm going to be ordering samples from. Hopefully, just need to negotiate with them on the price for that, because we are working on a strict budget, because last week we created a budget. I'd encourage you, if you haven't seen that one, definitely check it out, because it was it was definitely an eye-opener for how to launch a product on a low budget. You have to make sacrifices, right? You can't just do everything you want to do. And I'm used to doing bigger product launches, and where we're going to really brand a product, make lots of changes. If we're starting a new brand, we're going to trademark it, do everything right. But when you've got a low budget, you've got to make some sacrifices somewhere. So we talked about that last week. So definitely check out part 4 last week if that is something of interest to you. And just a reminder, we're doing an investment log each week, because I want you to know where money is going, when I'm having to spend money, but also how I'm investing time. Because a lot of you out there will be wondering, can I do this beside my job? I have other projects I'm involved in. I have other responsibilities. And so if I'm going to do this on the side, I want want to kind of show you what kind of time commitment it's taking. And so this is part 5. We've been doing this for 5 weeks now. This is the 5th week. I definitely would like to have been further along. The biggest delay really has just been the interaction with suppliers in China. A lot of them are slow to reply, especially as I'm not a big fish that they want to try and impress. 200-300 units isn't going to really get them that excited. So I have to continually chase them up. I got a lot of other projects on as well at the moment. So there's been 2 or 3 days sometimes that have gone by and I haven't replied or I haven't got back to people. And so, there's been some delays on that sense. And that's just the way it is though, right? And so here we are, week 5, and this is a bit of a time log. Obviously, the only money I've spent so far is the £33 on the Helium 10 subscription. I would have spent that anyway, but that's just to kind of be open. And, that's based on what I've used for this project would be similar to what you would need to use. The next money that I'm going to need to spend is on samples. So that's coming up this week. So I'll log that money next week. Time-wise, just to update it, the stuff in red is what's been updated this week on the sourcing. Stage 3, I'm breaking it down by stage just so you can see the different sort of 8 steps, which I'll refer back to in a moment, just to add some time on there. I spent around an hour this week just continuing to follow up with suppliers, getting it to the point where I can pretty much order a sample. So we're just confirming the last couple of things and then that'll be done. So yeah, 4 hours, 38 minutes so far. We're pretty much ready, like I say, to order samples, almost to order the products. So not bad. I think the benefit for me is that I can be quite decisive because I do have experience, obviously launched a lot of products. And so it's a little bit easier for me to be a bit more decisive. I'm not expecting it would take you that long, but just to give you a bit of context. So just a reminder, we're following what we call the brand builder blueprint. Is a bit more advanced. If you're a beginner, I would really just focus on learning how to select products, how to source products, and how to sell products. Those would be the first 3 things that I would really start learning on if you're brand new. Like if this is one of the first videos you're watching about how to sell on Amazon, this may look complex. It may look, like a bit confusing, but this is meant to be like a complete process for you to launch your product and not just launch a single product, but then really grow it into a brand that lasts, into a business that's going to create opportunities for you. It's going to free you up from that grip that money can so easily place over your time by building a business off the back of leverageable systems like Amazon FBA and so on. So that's what we're following. If you do want a copy of this blueprint, it's like a full checklist for each of these 8 steps to take to launch your product and build your brand. Then you can check that out in the description below. So we're going to move on this week to starting to set things up. Now, the reason we have this process in this order is because the idea being once you've got your product ordered and product underway, starting to be manufactured, you're going to have a period of time, be that 4, 6, 8 weeks, however long it may take. You're going to have a whole bunch of time in which you can do the things that so many people get caught up on before they even find a product. Some people start their journey of selling on Amazon, building a brand, and they spend like 4 weeks deciding on a brand name and they don't even know what products they're going to sell. It doesn't make sense. You're trying to do the cart before the horse, and so they spend another 3 weeks trying to find a bank for their business, and then they spend 2 more weeks setting up their legal entity, their business, and then another week deciding on a logo, and it's like you haven't even found a product yet, and so the reason we do it like this is to get you underway, to get you understanding the business model, what kind of products you're going to sell, and then get started with your setup. There's 4 key areas when it comes to setting up that we look at inside the checklist and give you the step-by-step for and actually teach you inside of Brand Builder University. There is, of course, business setup, brand setup, Amazon setup, and finance and legal setup. We're going to focus today on brand setup for a few reasons. When it comes to business setup, that's like the legal entity setup. We've already got that set up that we're going to be running this product through, and there's lots of information out there, and it is very nuanced. It depends on your circumstances, so we're not going to focus as much on that one. And then when it comes to Amazon setup, that is, of course, your Amazon account, which is a pretty simple process. And then when it comes to the Amazon listing, we'll actually do that in a week or 2. I'll show you me setting up the listing live and creating, optimizing the listing, so on and so forth. And then you've also got your finance and legal setup. But for the sake of time, I want to focus today on brand setup, and really with a few key areas. Number one, we need to to choose a brand name for this brand. We're going to look at domain names and actually register that, and then social media accounts be registered and a logo to be created. Those are the main facets of brand. There's some things later on in the checklist for brand setup, like designing your packaging, getting your barcode account created, that kind of thing. But for today's session, only we're going to focus on these things, going to get these things done. And we're recording this live inside of our Brand Builder University community. I'm going to get their input on what we do with this specifically for the brand name and also the logo. Going to create the logo. As I said earlier on in the project, I'm creating the logo myself. I'm going to do the logo, the infographics, the packaging, hopefully, all of that kind of stuff through free tools you can use for free, just to show you how you can cut costs and how you don't need to overthink things. When you're first launching a product, you don't need to something outstanding and amazing. Obviously that would be great, but we're going to get things off the ground, get things started, because so often the enemy of success is not failure, but it's inaction. You know, we're so worried about mistakes that we don't ever take a step forward. And what I want to try and show you in this is if you just get a product launched, you learn so much by doing. So number one, and my question to you guys that are watching live is, what are we going to call this, right? And so my thought process so far, because this is a cross stitch, the thing we want to do is, of course, make sure that we get something that's not already trademarked according to this checklist, a good domain available. We want some social media accounts available, and we want it to be relatively short and relatively memorable. But of course, we also don't want it to be restrictive. Probably don't want to call it, cross stitch heaven, because if we then decide to do something that is, not cross stitch, then we're going to be limited. We can't do that. So, we probably want to call it something a little bit broader. And so my thought process is something like sew, around the sewing name, because obviously you can do the play on words with sew, S-E-W, and S-O. And so that's my thought and my question to you guys that are watching with us live. What do we think we can come up with? The goal is to kind of reach a younger audience of females around 20 to early 40s, that kind of age group. So we need to think about something that's going to appeal to them, something that's going to be cute, a little bit sort of hipster, a little bit trendy, and I'm not obviously a hipster or trendy, but just trying to get in that mindset of what that person would think. So I'm thinking something, like sew something. So what do you guys reckon? Any ideas? All right, so we've come up with a few ideas in the group. What we're talking about is it would be great to come up with a brand name that has the possibility to create some community around it, right? Because how I foresee this, part of our marketing strategy could be social media accounts and, like a Facebook group, stuff like that. That's not necessarily product driven, but it is community driven. Products would be a big part of it, but have a community driven aspect. So we've been brainstorming that in the group. Some ideas like Get Stitched, I like that. Sew Queen, yeah, sewing it up. Sew Buddy, sewing together. So Creative, I like that as well. The thing we've obviously got to find is we've got to find something unique. We can't be too restrictive, like we said. So a little tip for you guys, and we may have to employ this when we decide on a brand name, is say, for instance, So Creative, S-E-W Creative. I really like that one. However, that's probably going to be in use because it's quite a common kind of combination of words. But what you can do if you are trying to find something unique is you can actually, change the spelling, right? So we could do So Creative with a, creative with a K, creative without the E on the end, or, you don't want to get too clever with it, but just something that's going to make it unique. Unfortunately, that's the way of the internet these days. Is it's very hard to find common words as they are to be able to use them as a brand name, as a domain. It can be challenging like that. So you do have to get a little bit creative. So there's a few good options there. We'll kind of role play the idea of if we called it So Creative. What we're going to do is we're going to, look at the potential opportunities there. Like, are we going to be restricted? Because that is quite common, and we probably will come up against some challenges with that. So let's kind of use that as a bit of a case study. We are here inside of the IPO. And so you can come here, whether you're looking in the UK, you can come to trademarks.ipo.gov.uk, or you can go to the USPTO in the US to check similar process. And all we're going to come to do down here is going to go So Creative, and we're going to see what comes up. Okay, so we've got a So Creative there. Potential option we've got is to get creative with the spelling of how we're going to spell that and see if it comes up. Let's try. I like the K because it's just a little bit different. I don't know how I feel about that, but let's try. Hypothetically speaking, if we were going to go with this and change the spelling, we would then sort of just have a little look on the trademark search. If this was me, I'd probably be inclined to do the right start trademark check, where I just pay half of it up front and then get their feedback initially, because I wonder how, like it's brought up their creative. We obviously use different letters, but it's brought up the results for this one. So I do wonder if they might say, no, it's too similar, especially if we were filing in the same classes. So I do wonder on that. So let's say, for instance, we do go ahead with that. And then what we're going to want to do is come to GoDaddy. Obviously, personal preference, there's lots out there, but I've just always used GoDaddy and they are good. And so if I was potentially doing So Creative, just come in here and I leave this blank at the end, because then it gives you potential options in there rather than kind of saying .co.uk or whatever like that. Okay, so it's got .co.uk, it's also got .com. So that would be a good sign, right? Because it's quite a short domain. .com is available, which is really good. 99p for the first year, which is really good as well for our budget. Come on, somebody. So that's good. The challenge is obviously going to be someone is going to potentially misspell this. 21st century brand, often this isn't an issue because most people are going to be clicking on a link as opposed to typing in a URL. However, there is just that 1% factor that does annoy me a little bit. And I do wonder if people, would type that in. So that might annoy me enough to just sort of have another think there as well. But like I say, we're just kind of workshopping this idea, and then we're going to go away this week and just finalize exactly what name we will go with, and then come back and confirm for you. But say this was the one, I would be checking GoDaddy. I would see that .com is available, and I would be snapping that right up because it's cheap, it's short, it's available, which is really good. And then I'd just be checking social media. Ideally, I'd want Instagram and Facebook for this because it's going to be quite visual, potentially even like a YouTube channel. But again, with YouTube, the actual name is not as important. Great, like my YouTube channel is youtube.com/Ben Donovan, which is good because you can just say it like that. But at the same time, I bet you next to no one will ever put that into the URL. People will pretty much always be clicking on a link, clicking on a video from within YouTube. And so that's, another thing to consider. So mainly make sure there's an Instagram username. Ideally, your Facebook page you would have the same username available so that you could put on your packaging, just one username rather than, I hate it when I see packaging and they've got different username, like Facebook, So Creative, Instagram, so creative, and then Twitter, not so creative. They got just a different username for every social media platform. It looks really bad. It's not streamlined. It's not simple. So I like to try and make sure I can get the same ones. So I would be checking that. The next step, to design a logo, which is going to be the final thing we're going to do today. What I would suggest you do if you're on a tight budget, you come and use this free tool, Canva. And so you can come in here and you can type in logo, and it's going to come up with some suggestions, some options for you. So we're going to workshop this, right? You guys can help me just kind of decide on what we think looks good. But what I'm going to say with the logo, right, is simple is better. Too often, you try and make it crazy, try and do something like this. If this is obviously for a gaming brand, you try and go super detailed and pro. But ultimately, for most brands, something simple and something just one color is going to be way better for you because it's going to be replicable. Say, for instance, if you created this as your logo, great, it's quite striking and it looks good. However, if you then want to put this on some more simple packaging, like craft paper, sort of box packaging for our products, obviously that's not really going to fit in. Also, if you wanted to put this on your website, how does that fit in? How does it translate across lots of different media? So you want something that's relatively flexible in my eyes when you're starting out. Once you start to get a bit more advanced and you get a bit more experience, then you can really brand something more and you can really create a brand identity because you understand where you're trying to take it. But when you're starting out, honestly, I would start with an icon and the name of the brand. That's it. An icon and the name of the brand. You don't need to get crazy. You don't need to get, too complicated with it. So what we are going to do, I'm literally going to type in here, template sewing. This one, it's a bit of inspiration because I'm thinking, okay, the scissors, that's a potential. Maybe there's a needle one. Because when you think of something like sewing, cross stitch, you think the sewing, the creativity side of it. So we're looking for something that's going to just represent that. Something basic, something simple. And then we're just going to choose a font. And then literally that is going to be our logo. I mean, if you are in a more of a generic sort of niche, you could go like maybe fitness. How easy would it be to just simply, like I would probably just take away that background. I'd maybe just change it around a bit. I would make it black just to keep it simple for now. You can always obviously update the colors later on when you decide on brand colors. I'm going to create a new brand, Donovan Yoga, as I know that our whole community would love for me to do because I talk about yoga mats so much. Look, it's not the best logo in the world, but that's far better than some of the logos you see in some products on Amazon. Like, let's be honest, you know, it's so basic. And I don't know how that relates to yoga. I'm sure it does in some way for all the yoga experts out there. But basic is enough when you launch your first product. Don't overthink this. You don't need to go and pay someone hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds to brand your product. If you want to, of course, choose the right person and you'll get a good job of it, I'm sure, and it will help you with your whole mindset with branding, but it's not something you absolutely have to do. If you're on a low budget, don't spend money on stuff like logo design, where you can literally come in here and do this, and you can do it quickly, you can do it cheaply, and you could create 10 versions and put all of the versions on Facebook group like our one and get people to give their opinion on what one do you prefer. Everyone vote now, like I'm doing with you guys in our Brand Builder University group with the designs of these cross stitches. I'm like, get some crowd polling. You know, you could do something like that. You could maybe do something a little bit more abstract. If it's something to do with weightlifting, that looks good. That looks good. You know, it's so simple, so easy. It just obviously depends on your brand. So obviously for our sewing one, we are not coming up with anything that is strictly related to sewing. So let's see what I did there. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to find one that looks good, that I think aesthetically looks good. Okay, so I'm going to go with this one just because I like this. Let's say we go with So Creative. This text, I'm going to ungroup it because it's grouped, and I'm just going to literally get rid of that one, delete. Get rid of that creative. Probably just make that a little bit smaller. I'm a big fan of a nice bit of space around. I'm going to change that to white as well, just so it's two colors. Otherwise, my minimum order quantity at my supplier will try and charge me probably $100 for an extra color because it's such low amounts of printing. So I'm going to keep it simple for now. Remember, we can always update this later. But what I want to do is I want to find an icon. You can come to this bit down here that says elements. We're going to search for needle. Okay, so we've got some needles there. I like this one. That's Pro. That's annoying. You can get Canva Pro. I think it's like $7.99 a month. Let's see if we can find some non-Pro ones. Something simple. As you can probably tell, I've just more favor side by side. Now, guys, you don't have to be a graphic designer to do this, right? You just have to create something simple. Yeah, circle around it. That's a great shout, Matt. And then we got one ready-made for us here. Look, you could use this one here. It's a bit more fancy. However, the cross-stitch specifically, that is a good shout because it is, you're going to be using that embroidery circles. So that's a good sort of link in there. Put the little needle in. Make sure it's all lined up, and Canva sort of snaps this all into place. You can, I don't know if you can see these purple lines on here, but it sort of snaps it into place when it's in the middle. So you know that it's sort of centralized. Drag and draw around them, and then you can right click and group them. So you move them together, bring that into the middle. Bosh, there we go. You want something bold as well as simple because of the way it's viewed. Alan says, yeah, absolutely. Like if I had all the time in the world, I'd probably go for something a bit bolder in terms of the needle. Another thing you can do is go somewhere like iconfinder.com and look for a needle, and you can always import that into Canva. But I just wanted to show you a sort of a version of what you can do within Canva. Yeah, like I say, it's pretty simple, but I would be sort of pretty proud to put that on a product. Like the font is nice. You could make that all black and take away the background. So if you wanted to put it on a white box, but just to show you that that's, you know, what we can do in 5 minutes for free. It's not going to be the best logo in the world, but it gets you started. It gets you something started. You can tweak it. You can find other options of icons. You can import, like if you wanted to do like an image here instead of the icon in the middle, anything that's going to be like fitness or baby related or kids or home and garden, like you're going to have so many different sort of icon options. So play around with that and have a go. But like I say, it doesn't need to cost you loads. It doesn't need to take you a load of time. It just needs to be something to get you started. You know, we're already talking about tweaking the branding of SuperStem because it was the same thing. Like, let's get something moving. And then once it's moving, we can kind of tweak it along the way. Now, I know that would grate against some branding people. It's like, oh, you got to build your brand identity over years. And I do get that, and that's an ideal situation. However, you shouldn't be so paralyzed by the fear of having to change something in the future if you don't get something perfect now that you never get started. get it as good as you can, then get started, and then over time, tweak and optimize as you go forward. So like I say, that is a bit of a simple example, simple version for you. Not going to be perfect, and nothing of this process is going to be perfect because we're on a low budget. We need to make some sacrifices in places, and you might feel that is a stretch for you even to use Canva. But if you do decide you want to use somebody else to do it, you definitely can do it. There's places like Fiverr where this kind of stuff starts from $5 per job. For $5, it's going to be very limited what you get back. You're probably going to get someone that literally just creates one design on Canva for you, but the options are always there. That is the beginnings of brand setup. I will now go away and look back through over the names and make a decision on this name, get a domain name registered this week, and then get a sort of a finalized logo, which I will show you for your critique. And then next week we'll start to look at some keyword research, start creating this Amazon listing, give you an update on production, which hopefully will be about to get underway. Hopefully we'll have a sample by then. All keeps moving forward. Hopefully that's helped. All right, well, I didn't completely decide on the brand name. Probably will go with that brand name, but I'm going to do some more checks this week and then we'll report back to you next week. Obviously, like I say, I'm running the risk of not trademarking it, but this is all a bit of an experiment, so let's see what happens. If you have liked the video, then smash that thumbs up button harder than I just smashed my microphone, just to let me know that you're enjoying these videos, that you're getting something out of them. Don't forget, if you do want to pick up the checklist, it's down in the description below. And if you are someone that wants to build a business that's going to create freedom in your life, then be sure to subscribe, and I hope to help you do exactly that. Down below is just some other videos that you might like, some other resources. Definitely follow us along on social media, Brand Builder Uni on Instagram, posting regular content updates about what is happening behind the scenes building brands. I hope you find it helpful. I'm going to get back to work, and I'll see you in the next video real soon.